All right, hello everyone. I was asked by a student to do a review video like how I did last time. So we'll do this super quick, super easy so that you guys can have some more confidence going into this practical 3. All right, so the first lab we went over muscles, and muscles is going to be roughly 40% of this practical. So we basically did muscles all the way from the head down to the leg. We had, let's see, I'll show you these ones. So we had the epicranius muscles, which again included epicranius frontal belly, and then the epicranius occipital belly, which is in the back. We had the orbicularis muscles, orbicularis oculi. Oculi means eye, and orbicularis are these round muscles. So orbicularis oculi is over the eye. Orbicularis oris is over the mouth. And then we had our zygomaticus, which was covering that zygomatic bone at that angle you see there. Mastier muscle, that's our jaw muscle. If you have TMJ, that's the muscle they're talking about. Temporalis muscle is going to be on the temporal portion of the bone or the head. And then our sternometaclastoid, that's that muscle that goes from the collarbone and goes up behind the ear. So here's some other views of them. Slightly see the trapezius there. And then basically going on, here's that epicranius occipital belly. There's a little bit of the sternometaclastoid, and then here we can see that trapezius, that giant triangular shaped muscle on the upper portion of the back. All right, so that's the head and the face / neck. So moving on to the shoulders, arms and forearms. So we talked about how biceps brachii, that's your biceps muscle, but how you have to put brachii after it, or else you could be talking about biceps femoris, which is in the leg. So biceps brachii symbolizes it's a bicep muscle in the arm. Triceps brachii is on that posterior view. Again, you have to be specific, put brachii after it. And then in between those two muscles, you'll see brachialis. So here's another view. Here's biceps brachii on top, triceps brachii on below, and then in the middle there's the brachialis. Here's deltoid, that's your shoulder pad muscle. Again, here's the deltoid. All right, in the forearm, we had extensor digitorum, not extensor digitorum longus, that's in the foot or the lower leg. Extensor digitorum, remember, you can identify it because it's going to run into the tendons of the fingers and actually extend your fingertips out, hence where it gets its name. Here's the brachioradialis, that's covering the radial bone, and it's going to stem from this portion of the elbow and run medially in. Of course, depending what position your hand is in, it's either going to go medially or lateral, but it'll be right up here. Again, big difference between this and this. Extensor digitorum, you can see the whiteness right here going into the fingers. Brachioradialis does not have that. And then under the arm, we'll see pronator teres. Remember, pronator teres is in charge of pronation and supination. And then there's brachioradialis. All right, so in the back, we have trapezius is our upper triangular shaped muscle in the upper back. Here's our deltoid. Infraspinatus versus teres major. Infraspinatus is going to be more medially and anterior. Teres major is going to be below. Latissimus dorsi is that whole big back muscle covering the majority of the back. And then again, external versus internal oblique, we'll see on the next few slides. So then the thorax and the abdomen. So remember that this muscle guy is going to be split from a superficial side to a more deep side. So on the superficial side, we're going to see pectoralis major. That's your pec muscle. And then right underneath of it is pectoralis minor, which will be on the deep side. So remember, in real life, your muscles are layered on top of each other. You don't just have one on one side. That'd be silly. But anyway, so external oblique is going to be on the superficial side. Remember, these are the muscles when you're doing like those Russian twists that you're using. And then internal oblique will be on the internal or more deep side. On the more deep side, we'll also see the intercostals. Those will be in between the ribs. And then our rectus abdominis muscles, those are our ab muscles. And then here on the side, we have serratus anterior. So I remember this one by those striations that you see. Serratus anterior kind of makes sense. All right, so this part is everybody's worst part. So for starting off, we have gluteus maximus versus gluteus medius. Gluteus maximus is the bigger one. Gluteus medius is on top of gluteus maximus. All right, and then for in the leg, so remember rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. Those are all considered your quad muscles. Of course, we also have vastus intermedialis, but you guys don't need to know that one. So rectus femoris is going to be that big quad muscle that when you extend your leg out and flex, that's what you're feeling. But then on each lateral and medial side, we have a vastus muscle. So on the medial side, it's vastus medialis. On the lateral side, it's vastus lateralis. Remember, medial is closer to the midline. Lateral is further away from the midline. So then our only diagonal muscle in the upper leg, that's called our sartorius. And then the tensor fascia latae, remember that one, it's tensing that fascia a lot. That fascia is called the iliotibial tract, which we'll see in an upcoming slide. So here we can see there's the tensor fascia latae, there's the iliotibial tract. It's going to tense on that fascia latae. All right, so now working medially to laterally. So our most medial muscle in the leg, that's going to be gracilis. Abductor longus is going to be the second most medial. Pectineus up here is going to be like the middle man. And then your most lateral will be that tensor fascia latae. So again, most medial to lateral is, in my opinion, the best way to understand this. And if, best way to understand it. So there's them again showing vastus medialis versus vastus lateralis, rectus femoris right here. Just some more. So on the back of the leg, our main muscle is biceps femoris, which is going to be on the lateral side. More medially, we have semimembranosus versus semitendinosus. So semitendinosus is going to form into a tendon, and semimembranosus is going to be underneath semitendinosus. So if you guys, if this is on the practical, those will be my hints that I would give you. All right, so there's a better view of semitendinosus versus semimembranosus. Again, semitendinosus is forming into a tendon. Semimembranosus will be underneath. All right, so I think we've covered all of the upper leg. So moving on to the lower leg. So we have, just like in our hand, we have an extensor digitorum on the leg, and that's going to extend the toes. But you need to include the word longus to specify that it's on the bottom portion of the leg. So extensor digitorum longus, and again, same with the hand. You're going to bring the muscle down, and you'll see that it'll turn into all of these tendons and ligaments, which will extend the toes So then we have tibialis anterior, which is actually going to be on the lateral side of where the tibia is, but it's covering the tibia. And you can remember it because you're going to be able to see it on the anterior view. So tibialis anterior. Gastrocnemius is going to be one of your major calf muscles. There's two heads to it, so both of these are the same muscle. You don't need to know that, you just need to know that that's gastrocnemius. So then here's another view of tibialis anterior versus extensor digitorum longus. You can see it going into tendons there. The most lateral one is going to, oh, this is medial, sorry. But the most lateral one will be fibularis longus. We'll see in a second. But what this is showing here is underneath the gastrocnemius, we'll have the soleus. And again, that's the second muscle of your major calf muscles, and it's under gastrocnemius. Covering the soleus will be the calcaneal tendon. It's also known as the Achilles tendon, but on the practical, you're going to write calcaneal tendon because we know this as the calcaneal region. And then here's the lateral view. The most lateral one is fibularis longus. All right, so that is the muscles, quick in 10 minutes. So now let's talk about the brain. So we looked at sheep's brain in the model. So let me find my pictures. So this is the underneath of the sheep's brain. So major thing here, this is the cerebral hemisphere. This is the cerebellum. This is the spinal cord. Some things not labeled, but are labeled right here. So you have your olfactory bulbs. Those are the same things right there. Another thing you don't have labeled is the olfactory tract. So that's coming off of the olfactory bulbs. You can't really see it here, a little bit right there, but that would be olfactory tract. Here we have the optic nerve. Those make those antennas coming off. The bridgeway system is optic chiasma, or chiasma, like I say sometimes. And then separating that would be the optic tract going into each of the hemispheres. This little hole right here is the infundibulum. This U-shaped portion is mammillary body. And then each of these sides right here, that's the cerebral pundicle, which everybody amongst all of my 3 sections, they all struggled with this view. So make sure that you know specifically these pretty good, really all of it, but study those since everyone had trouble with it. So then the first bump here is pons. The second bump is medulla oblongata. And again, it's the same stuff that is labeled in your book, minus olfactory bulbs and olfactory tract. So then this is what is in your book as well, but I'll show you on the model and on the dissection. So again, cerebral hemisphere is the big thing. Cerebellum is right here. Spinal cord is coming off. Medulla oblongata is the bump closest to the posterior portion of the spinal cord. Pons is closer to the anterior portion. Within the cerebellum are tree-like branches. My favorite part is the arbor vitae, which translates to the tree of life. Here's the 4 butts, the corpora quadrigemini. And then not labeled here, this right here would be the pineal gland. Right here is the optic chiasma, the 4 butts, corpora quadrigemini. I think I just said that. But optic chiasma right there. Right here technically would be mammillary body, but I don't believe that will be on the practical, but just in case, mammillary body would be right here. The thalamus or interthalamic adhesion, only on the brain can you do either or. On the actual model, you'll have to put specifically if it's the thalamus or interthalamic adhesion. But then underneath that thalamus is the hypothalamus. And then our flaps here, that top flap is corpus callosum. The middle flap is septum pellucidum, or the whole. and then fornix is the middle. So that's the picture in your book. And then for the actual model, it does look a little different, but same stuff. Cerebral hemisphere versus cerebellum. Here's those flaps. So the top layer is corpus callosum. The middle portion is septum pellucidum, and then the bottom there is fornix. And then for this region, this is the thalamus. Inside the thalamus, this small region right there, that's interthalamic adhesion. And then these three portions here, we have our optic chiasma, pituitary gland, mammillary body. The only new label here is hypothalamus, which is underneath the thalamus. And then right here we have the pineal gland, the corpora quadrigemini, that 4 butts, the cerebellum with the arbor vitae, the tree of life in there. And then the spinal cord coming off, medulla oblongata is posterior, pons is going to be more anterior. There's one more view that I skipped, and that's this one. So when it's all opened up, this is what the pineal gland or pineal body will look like versus the corpora quadrigemini. So again, when we are showing this on a practical, we have a little pin that will pin in right there with a number on the flag, and that will correspond to the question, and then it will correspond with your answer sheet. All right, so almost done. Let's talk about the eye and the ear that we learned this week. All right, so starting off with the muscles in the eye. Oh, I think I gave you the one that I put together a few semesters ago. So let me get the other one that I taught in class. All right, so if it will load. So the muscles in the eye, remember I told you it's not as difficult as it seems. Just remember superior, inferior, and lateral for the direction, and then knowing the difference between an oblique muscle and a rectus muscle. So your oblique muscles are going to run under for rotation. Rectus muscles are going to run horizontally or above or under, and those are going to be for moving the eye up, side to side, or down. And then you have your trochlea, which helps with that clockwise rotation of the eye. So here's just some pictures, but the biggest thing really, oblique muscles are going to run this way, and right there is an oblique muscle. Rectus muscles will be directly on the eye, moving it up, down, side to side. Let's see, there's the superior oblique muscle attached to the trochlea. All right, I don't think you need to know medial rectus, but it would be right there. All right, for the structures of the eye, we have the sclera, which is the eye whites, the iris, which is the colored portion, pupil, which is that black hole in the center that dilates and contracts for letting light in. The cornea is that clear part. That's where you would basically be putting your contact lens onto. And then for going deep and under, well, that top layer, that's the choroid. In the eye model, it's going to be brown, but remember in the sheep's eye, because they have nocturnal vision, we'll see it more as a turquoise metallic color. And then inside the eye, we have the ciliary body that helps maintain the shape of the lens. This tan portion, that's going to be the retina, sends that electrical impulse into the optic disc and then off to the optic nerve. That's going to go into the brain. I think that's all. So there's, again, a different view. Adding the fovea centralis, which is that purple dot. Remember, that's for your fine detailed vision. And then covering the inside of the eye, we have the vitreous humor, which is that snotty like gel substance that was in the eye. And then the lens. All right, so then for the sheep's eye, we could only see the cornea. We couldn't see the iris or pupils, so don't worry about that. So the cornea, that's where the contact lens would be on. Sclera is the white part. Optic nerve is going to branch off. Again, ours is not that big. The ciliary body is that black portion in there. The lens was like that bouncy ball with layers like an onion. The vitreous humor is that gel or snot-like substance. And the choroid is this really pretty metallic turquoise color that you see right there. And the retina, you can't see it great, but remember it was that thin tissue that we saw. I don't think I have an actual picture of it, but that thin gray tan tissue that was connected to the optic disc. All right, then for the ear, this is what is in your book. So we have the auricle or pinna, and that funnels the sound waves in. That's all cartilage right there. The lobule is this adipose tissue here. External acoustic meatus, that is, remember in the skull, that hole, that meatus, canal, passageway. Same thing here, it's your ear hole. That sound wave's going to go onto the tympanic membrane. Also your eardrum, but in this class, tympanic membrane. You will not get credit if you write eardrum. The sound wave's going to bounce off our ossicles. So we had the stapes, incus, and malleus. So the incus was our hairdryer shaped. Malleus is a mallet shaped. Incus was that stirrup shaped ossicle. And you'll see them on this little model that has all of the bones there. So then on the inner ear, we have the cochlea. That's actually responsible for the sound. The sound's going to generate an impulse and send through this vestibular cochlear nerve. And then remember, we had the vestibular system, which helps your orientation in space. We have the vestibule right here, the semicircular canals, which is easy to remember because they're semicircular. And then the pharyngotympanic tube. This is going to branch into your sinus system. And that's what pops when you have sinus problems or getting off an airplane or whatever. Closer look, cochlea, vestibule, semicircular canals. Here's the stapes, and then the round window will be right under here, right there, as you can see. So for reference, cochlea, stapes, semicircular canal, and vestibule, and your nerve right there. Vestibular cochlear nerve. All right, so that is all. So I hope that you guys study well. This is a very short video, and I hope it helps. So good luck to you in the practical, and I will see you next week.